Good morning and welcome to Wake Up to Broker Up with Mark, episode number 3 for 2025. And guess what? Part 2 of last week's episode about the parcels of land and the 2 of the 3 parcels that were sold in the tax sale. And no, I don't have the answer yet. But got lots of questions about that particular thing and who was to blame. Everybody wants to place blame. And the point of last week's video was not about blame. It was about what? Oh yeah, attention to detail. So, in honor of Martin Luther King Jr. holiday on Monday, I'm going to start with a Martin Luther King Jr. quote. Everything that we see is a shadow cast by that which we do not see. And the relevance of that to our story about the 3 parcels of land is, again, I'm not sure that anyone in the whole transaction did anything wrong, but people make assumptions. And when they make assumptions, that makes an ass out of you and me, as they say. And because it does, assuming things can ultimately lead to trouble. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't have assumptions, but sometimes we have to follow up on assumptions to make sure that those assumptions are indeed correct. Because when they're not, in this case, bad things can happen. So if you think about the listing agent and the seller, they knew that the seller was selling 3 parcels of property. Flip over to the buyer and the buyer's agent. The buyer and the buyer's agent knew they were selling 3 parcels of property. In my knowledge, of course, very limited, I don't have all the details. My knowledge is that they then wrote it up, that the seller was selling 3 parcels and the buyer was buying 3 parcels, and the closing attorney processed the transaction, asked some questions, and ultimately what was conveyed was 1 parcel out of the 3. They all went to closing. They all sat there. The seller sold what they thought they were selling. The buyer bought what they thought they were buying. And the closing attorney closed what the closing attorney thought they were conveying and buying. And everyone assumed that everyone in the transaction was doing their role in the transaction exactly right. And something as offhand as, you do know this is 3 parcels of property, could have changed the outcome. Maybe that was uttered, maybe it wasn't. But in the end, attention to detail and making sure that your assumptions are indeed correct matters. And that's what the whole story was about, is about how we oftentimes, because it's normal and customary, we follow what happens. And we do what happens. And then sometimes the results can be not what we expected. Attention to detail. Don't place blame. Figure out what you need to do, and then make sure that what a seller is selling and a buyer is buying is indeed what the seller sells and the buyer buys. Thanks for watching. Enjoy your day. Enjoy your weekend. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.